everybody, good afternoon. This is Christy Klavsky, and Victoria Thomas is also on the call. She will be monitoring questions today. So chat panel where you see the questions section, and feel free to type those in there. We've got a small group today, so make sure when we're done you spread the word and tell your friends how awesome the Title Services online application is so they can use it too. Okay, cool. So I am showing you guys my screen right now. I just wanted to show you, in case you've never logged in to the Tucker Services app before, where you find that. So I'm on Tucker Toolbox, and I just searched for Title Services. And from the Title Services page, down here at the bottom, it says start using Tucker Services by visiting tuckerservicesapp.com. So if you've never done that before, just make a mental note after this call to go ahead and get that account set up. You'll have to, establish a username, which is probably going to be your Tucker email address, a password, and then you will select your office's title rep. I think everybody that's on is Keystone, so you guys would just select khaki when you go ahead and set that account up. But then once it's set up, you can start using it. I am logged in here to my my Title Services Title Capture app on my desktop. I will say that the application on your phone works very similarly. So I'm not going to show my phone screen today, but there is an app that follows right along with it, and it is called Tucker Services. So you would just search for that in the App Store. Of course, type in the username and password that you established on your desktop, and then you're in business. And the nice thing about the app piece of it is you can be out at an appointment and actually pull up mortgage calculations or seller net sheet estimations. So that can be a really nice sort of on-the-go tool. But how I typically use this is mostly for seller net sheets, and I typically do these on my desktop just because it's a little bit easier to kind of see and get all the information in there. And then the other thing we're going to show you guys today is how to compare multiple offers. So if you have a listing and you get 3-4 offers, how can you type that information in and sort of compare them apples to apples? Okay, so from this home screen, I'm going to go to the seller net sheet section up here at the top. And then all of these fields are available for me to start filling in information. So you might do this, of course, before you sit down with a seller or go to a listing presentation, or even, of course, at the time when you get an offer, if you want to send them something just to say, hey, I know this is $5,000 less than our asking price. Here's what that equates to at the end of the transaction. So I'm going to walk you guys through it. It's relatively straightforward. I'm just going to use a dummy address here. Carmel, Indiana. Cool. So property address goes there, and then sales price. So what you're planning on listing the home for, or whatever you get on a purchase agreement, is what you would go ahead and put in this section. I'm going to do $250,000 as our sale price. And then the closing date defaults about 30 days out from today's date. So you can adjust that a little bit. So maybe I'm going on a listing appointment tonight and we talk and they have a couple weeks worth of stuff to do. So we may, when I'm calculating this, I might not want to put June 3rd on there because the chances of us closing that quickly, if they've got a few more weeks to get their home ready, is pretty slim. So maybe I bump that out, to the end of June or something like that. And of course, higher dollar homes, you guys know what's sitting a little bit longer than some of our lower dollar homes. So put your closing date in there. And that's kind of an important figure because your prorated taxes are going to be calculated on that date. So you want to try to get it as close as you possibly can. The next section is additional transaction details. Who's going to pay the closing fee? Typically on most purchase agreements right now, we're seeing that split between the buyer and seller. So I'm going to go ahead and put 50-50 split. Under mortgage payout, basically what do they still owe on the home? So in this case, I'm going to put $150,000. If they happen to have a second mortgage or a HELOC or anything like that, you can enter it in that second spot. Brokerage commissions. Just basically break it down by each side. And then if you are charging that commission fee back to your client, you could enter that here. The next section is HOA information. So how often are dues paid? In this case, I'm just going to put kind of a basic $350 a year. And then did the seller pay for the current year? We're going to pretend that they're due Jan 1. So yes, they would have already paid that amount. And then the resale certificate and the transfer fee, that is, it's going to be hard for you to know what those fees are until you're kind of in a transaction and working to closing. But if it's a neighborhood that you work frequently, you may know what the HOA charges to transfer that information over. So you could add those. Honestly, I typically just leave that blank and just let them know that we really won't know that number until we get a little closer to closing. So that's what I would suggest there. And then property tax proration, we're going to enter our annual property taxes. So I'm going to say in this case, $3,000 a year. And then did seller pay for last year's taxes? So tax bills come out, of course, in May and November. So at this point, May is kind of a tricky month because you don't really know if they've paid those yet. Now, of course, most folks have their taxes held in escrow. So they likely don't have a big old check to write. You could always ask them that question. So as of right now, because the tax bills are already out, and I'm going to assume that my clients have that money in escrow, I'm going to go ahead and say that the first half was paid for 2019. So hopefully you guys know how the taxes work. It's a little tricky, but say we were in January, I would likely say that no taxes had yet been paid for the previous year because the tax bills haven't come out yet. So, just kind of watch that based on what month we're in and when we think we're going to close. And then the final section where we can enter information is other seller expenses and credits. So this could be anything like lender closing fees. If I've got a property where I assume that we may be asked for some closing fee help, I might go ahead and put this in on the front end. Just an estimation, just kind of helps people know what they can maybe expect. And then when we get offers that don't have that, I look like a hero and it's more money than they think. Other stuff I could put in here is home warranty. You could enter, inspection repairs. I typically like to estimate about 1% of the sale price, so maybe $2,500 in this case. And obviously use your best judgment there. If the house is brand new and it's in immaculate condition, you might not even want to put any dollar amount there. But I always like to put a little bit of something, so when people do get that buyer inspection response, they're not shocked when someone's asking for a few $100s worth of repairs. They've already thought, okay, this is common. I'm going to be asked to repair something, which, as you guys know, in this market, with people paying at or above list, they're typically wanting, especially those larger items, fixed. So you can add whatever you want as far as additional expenses and credits. If there's anything else in the purchase agreement that you received that the buyer's asking if the seller pay for, that could also go in this section with maybe a survey, for example. And then from here, I'm going to click on this button that says calculate. And here's where the magic happens. So now I've got a really nice net estimation to provide to my seller that shows them what they will likely net at the list price that we're going to go in at after they pay all of their expenses. So there's a couple different things you can do from this screen. You can, I always like to save it right away so that way I have a record of what I worked on. So I'm just going to say like Smith net sheet test. I think it's a pretty good idea sometimes to put the date. I've ran into an issue with that before where I was like, which one is the most current one? So I might put 5/4/2020. So I remember when I created that for my clients. So now it's saved. Now it pops it under the saved section over here, which is really nice. You can email this to your client or just download a PDF version of it. So either way, it's easy to kind of get that information over to your seller. You can put it on a flyer if you want. And then if you want to go back in later and make any sort of adjustments, here's the one that we just worked on. And then you can click on this little pencil, the edit button, and maybe we thought the purchase price was going to be $250, but all of a sudden we got multiple offers and we're at $255. So then you can enter that, calculate. It's going to save all of your old information that you already had, and then you can kind of see, okay, there's where we would net with that higher offer that we received, and then you can save that one with another name like Smith net sheet offer number 1, and then, you know, again, date it if you want. Okay, and then save it. Same thing here, you can email, download, etc., etc. Any questions before I move on?
Doesn't look like we've had any.
Okay. The other thing I want to show you, oh, did we have one, Victoria?
Well, somebody just responded yes, but didn't type an actual question. So maybe, oh, what, here it comes. Okay. Eric's saying that he's using my app and it won't calculate.
Like the app on your phone, Eric?
Yes.
Make sure you've got the latest version of it. I'll be honest with you, I was actually having some issues with it this morning, and I probably need to like update the app. I prefer the desktop version personally. So check that you're running the most recent.
I do also know that if you don't have an address in there, or you kind of have the address like not totally correct, it might not calculate. I've seen that happen too.
Yeah, that's one of the most common things with whatever the software is. If you only have like 123 Main Street, and for whatever reason it wants that city and state in there, probably because a lot of the information is driven off of the state that you're in. So just watch that your address is complete. That's kind of a common thing that'll kind of keep it kind of funky. The other thing I wanted to show you that's really nice with this system is comparing multiple offers. So from up here at the top, we're in the seller net sheet section right now. If you go over a couple, you'll see all estimates. And you can compare multiple offers. It's kind of halfway down there on that menu. And here's where you would do the same thing we already did. 123 Main Street, Carmel, Indiana, blah, blah, blah. You would put sort of the main information that you already have, which is going to be, you know, your mortgage payoff isn't going to change. Your commissions aren't going to change. Transaction fee isn't going to change. HOA isn't going to change. I think I said 350. Property taxes aren't going to change, but what will change, of course, I think that's what I said, are all of your different offers that maybe come in. So maybe these folks want to close on July 1st, and they are offering that maybe there are 255 offer. They might be asking, oops. They might be asking for closing costs because they're going above list, let's say, for example. Oops. But maybe they're not asking for a home warranty. So maybe that's their only ask. And then we've got another offer that's closing sooner, let's say. Maybe they're going to close June 8th. They're offering the straight list price, and then maybe they're not asking for anything else. So what's nice then is you can compare these two offers side by side and see, okay, with Jones, we would likely net somewhere close to 80, and with that Smith offer, which was the lower list price, but they're asking for closing costs. You can kind of see how those break down, and you can enter as many offers as you want in here. I know it's kind of crazy right now out there with many offers coming in on properties. So you could, kind of sky's the limit, and it's a nice way for you to then save and share with your client via email or attaching a PDF to an email of what they will likely net with each of these offers. Okay. Don't forget, you always have kind of a quick access to your title services reps contact information. So if you had a question on anything, you could always reach right out to Khaki, or if you work with Claudia, her number is there as well. I would definitely suggest customizing your account by doing things like adding your photo and your contact information. And you do that up here in the top, sort of where my name is. Here's where I can enter a photo. Just upload it from my computer or wherever it lives. And that's sort of a nice way to do it because, and I need to upload my photo, it's a good reminder. If you don't, Khaki's photo is going to be on there and yours won't. So just kind of, it's a little confusing maybe for your seller when you're sharing those estimates with them. So definitely get up here and personalize. And again, that multiple offer was under all estimates. There's some really great buyer tools in here as well. So what you could do with buyer side, you can do this stuff in the app as well. This is why I sort of like the mobile capacity of this. I would likely do more buyer estimates if I'm out showing a property and they're like, hey, this house is like $5,000 above our budget. How does that affect our monthly payment? Great reason to do it on your phone, sort of right when you're right there in the showing. But you could also always do these ahead of time as well if you're going to show something. So same thing, you enter a property address. Enter loan information. We're just going to pretend it's a conventional loan. What are they putting down? We'll leave that at 20 since we said conventional. And then what's your interest rate? Rates are insane today. Closing date, again, 30 days out. Might need to change that for whatever reason. And you're guessing on some stuff like homeowners insurance, their rate's going to be affected by, personal type financial reasons, but you can estimate that. We would likely know what the property taxes are from the BLC sheet. Obviously, the buyer would not pay the real estate commissions, but if you are charging your buyers that $225 commission fee, you could put that there. HOA dues are big, right? Because sometimes, depending on if the home is or is not in an HOA, that might affect their payment one way or another. I'm just kind of filling this out, just like we did for our seller. You're going to struggle to know these lender fees. So if you work with Tucker Mortgage or another lender really frequently, you might have some ideas of what those lender fees are, but those are hard to calculate, I think, as an agent. Other buyer expenses and credits, this is just like what we did on the seller side. Maybe the buyer does want a home warranty and they're willing to pay for it, something like that. We could enter that here and then calculate. So this is sort of a nice way to just kind of give an on-the-fly monthly payment to your buyer. Just a quick plug for Tucker Mortgage. I really shy away from these buyer estimates unless sort of the example I gave you, like we're in a house and they're like, oh, this seems like a little higher than we wanted to pay. What's it going to look like? Then I might run some numbers for them. But 9 times out of 10, I direct them back to Tucker Mortgage because they're so good about not just giving them a, oh, hey, you're approved up to 300. They'll sort of work with your clients and say, what are you comfortable paying? And then let's back into a number. And then when we're going out and looking at houses, depending on what the taxes are, what the HOA fees are, they'll help them come up with whatever that number looks like. So this is a great tool for you to have. I always, with this one and with the seller net sheet, I always just give the disclaimer that this is just an estimation. We're getting them in the ballpark of their numbers, but by no means sort of a final, gospel net or monthly amount. So that was under our buyer estimate section. And then same thing, you can save these, you can email them, come back later and edit them, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a really, really nice tool to kind of give you some good information at your fingertips. One I haven't played with much that seems really kind of enticing right now is this rent versus buy. I haven't played with it much, so we're just going to kind of go through it together. Let's say someone's rent right now is $1,500. We'll use our same example house here in Carmel. Uh, 50 split. We can put some of our same numbers in here from before. This isn't exactly what I was thinking it was going to show us, but play around with it. I was hoping it was going to show us, like I typed in that monthly payment of what their rent was what, $1,500. But in that example we did right before this for the buyer estimate, the monthly payment to own the home was 12 something. So I don't know, this isn't showing me exactly what I wanted, but play with it. It looks kind of interesting. So there's some really cool stuff you can do in here. Anyone on the call used this before and have another sort of tip or trick to share with us or the others on the call? Maybe monthly affordability was what I wanted to play with, but you guys get the idea. Or any other questions we can help you guys with this afternoon?
Eric just reported that it just seems to be the mobile that's having issues.
Weird. I'm sorry, Eric. I will, after this call, I'm gonna actually send a ticket on that because I was having a few issues this morning as well. So if we're using the most updated version of it, we should not have issues. All right, cool. Well, we hope this was helpful. I just want to make a quick note. Depending on when you guys went through new agent training, we used to share with you a spreadsheet that had some title services fees on it that you could use to calculate a seller net. Those title, just so you guys know, Title Services has stopped publishing that spreadsheet. They want you guys to use this online or app-based application exclusively. And the good news about that is that if anytime a fee changes or anything like that, they will update it on the back end on their side. So you don't have to worry about missing a notice that the closing fee went up or something like that. So if you are using that spreadsheet, either delete it and stop using it, or next time you have a closing, I would just go in and make sure that all your numbers are accurate. So when you're doing these nets on the spreadsheet, you've got the most recent Title Services numbers, or just check with your account manager, Kaki or Claudia, and just say, hey, I still like to use the spreadsheet. help me out. I just want to make sure that I'm quoting accurately, and I'm sure they will happily give you those. But I used to always only use the spreadsheet, and I got rid of it and just use this now, and it works really great. I would just say the number one thing is make sure you save your nets, and then I like to not only save them here within the system, but I like to download a version of it and just put it in my client folder in Drive. That way I have it as well, and I remember like, oh yeah, I ran this on May 4th, and I emailed it to them on whatever date, just so I have a good record of what we talked about. Awesome. Any last questions before we sign off?
Nope, don't have anything.
Okay, cool. Well, thanks for joining today. Hopefully this was helpful, and enjoy the sunshine out there. I feel like today was kind of a bonus day. It wasn't supposed to be nice, but it is. So go enjoy, and thanks for sticking around. Have a good one.